1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Should go to Mike. Change it to Mike. Well, but there's no buzz. It's clean. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sir? It's hot.
Good afternoon, everybody. I want to thank you all for coming out today. It's 10 below zero. You know, only in Iowa do this many people show up at an ice cream parlor when it's 10 below zero to meet somebody else's governor. I'll tell you what, we are tough up here. So one thing about this cold weather, I always like to see silver lining in things. And, you know, being a Cubs fan, this kind of weather, thank you. This kind of weather makes me feel a lot more confident that the Cubs could win the series, because at some point, weather like this, hell has to freeze over. So that having been said, I just want to introduce our special guest here today, and we are indeed honored to have him here. Christie was sworn in as governor of New Jersey January 19th. Oh, that wasn't that long ago. January 19th, 2010, and re-elected to a second term on November 5th, 2013. Under Governor Christie, New Jersey has taken on the biggest and toughest challenges with real solutions and bipartisan cooperation. He has implemented an aggressive reform agenda to restore fiscal integrity and accountability to the state and local governments. He has lowered New Jersey's property taxes, reformed the state's pension and health benefits system, and improved public education to ensure every child has access to a quality education. A lifelong New Jerseyan, Governor Christie has a deep affection for and a strong commitment to the state in which he has spent his entire life. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Governor Chris Christie.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think you all can hear me without this, right? If for some reason you can't, just someone raise your hand. I'll use the microphone. But I want to thank all of you for coming today. I appreciate the warm. We were in Milford last night, and you need to know it's much colder there. So we've enjoyed our time here. Started in Des Moines a couple of days ago. Made our way around. We're going to be getting down to Council Bluffs after we're done here today, and looking forward to the time we're spending here in Iowa, and we'll be back again week after next. So thank you for taking the time this afternoon rather, to be with us. I thought it was kind of funny when I saw we had set this up at an ice cream parlor for today. It's a really optimistic group of people. This is really good. So I appreciate you all taking the time to be with us, and I want to talk to you about a couple of things off the top, and then spend the rest of the time taking questions from all of you about the things that you're concerned about or curious about. I saw the president this morning said that the return of the hostages from Iran in a trade that he made with other folks that we had rightfully arrested for violating sanctions against Iran was an example of great diplomacy. I don't know how many more times these folks have to kick him before he realizes he's being kicked. The Iranians have treated him with such enormous disrespect and such disrespect for our country. Everything from chanting death to America and burning our flag to what they've done with this missile testing that's going on in clear violation of previous agreements, to what they did with our sailors just this past week, who mistakenly went into Iranian waters, and they took video of them on their knees with their hands over their heads, with guns being pointed at them. And now, for folks that they had detained illegally, this president, not when he signed the agreement, not at any other time, he couldn't get these folks back. He had to trade people to get these folks back. That to me is not a triumph of diplomacy, everybody. It is an ongoing display of weakness by the President of the United States, which affects our country. And, you know, I watched his State of the Union address last Tuesday, and I said at the debate on Thursday night, I felt like it was story time with Barack Obama. I mean, you know, you can't believe some of the stuff that he says and how he views what's happening in our country. But story time's getting ready to be over. You know, it'll be just about a year left of the Obama presidency, and he's going to try to make it as difficult for us as he can. But there's now light at the end of the tunnel. I heard him on Tuesday night say that ISIS is just a bunch of guys with beards on the back of a pickup truck with guns. That's interesting. You know, I wonder if he would be willing to go over and look face to face to those families, the 130 families in Paris who lost their loved ones, and say that to them. Or the 14 families in San Bernardino when he stopped there on his way to his Hawaiian vacation. I wonder if he said that to them. Well, this is no big deal because these guys are just a bunch of guys with beards on the back of pickup trucks with guns. I wonder if he'd say that to the folks in Jakarta who were killed, the folks in Turkey who were killed, or to the ongoing slaughter that's going on in the Middle East, with Christians being beheaded simply because of their religious beliefs by these folks. You know, he's doubling down on the fact that he thinks these guys are the JV. But what they're proving is that in lots of different places on this globe, they can bring terror and murder. And that every day they're recruiting more folks to their cause. We need a president who actually understands this and understands how to take it on. And I will tell you, of all the people on the stage in our primary on that debate Thursday night, I'm the only one who's fought terrorism. President Bush made me U.S. Attorney in New Jersey. He named me on September 10th, 2001. And the next day, that job changed significantly from the job that I accepted the day before. And we spent a lot of time over the next 7 years working on exactly how to intercept these folks and catch them before they act. What President Bush and Attorney General Ashcroft told us was it was not good enough to get them after they committed the act, after there were deaths of Americans, that we need to catch them before. And the way to do that is to up our intelligence capability, up our law enforcement capability, so we can know what they're planning before they execute. And we've seen that under this president, he's diminished our defense capability. He's diminished law enforcement. He's diminished the intelligence community and their capabilities. And then he wonders why we have the massacre at the Boston Marathon. Well, if you don't give law enforcement and the intelligence community the tools and the ability they need to be able to find out what they're planning beforehand, you won't catch them. And he's diminished our military. We have the smallest active duty Army we've had since 1940, the smallest active duty Navy we've had since World War I. And he wonders why folks don't take us as seriously around the world as they used to. Last thing is, he tells you that the reason you're all concerned, and the Oval Office, who's a strong leader, who's unafraid to make decisions, and understands that these folks are out to try to impose their religious beliefs upon us and to use violent means to do so. Well, there's no way to reason with folks like that. We just need to defeat them. And we need to defeat them in every way we can, first and foremost by raising the defenses here at home. We need to protect each other first. And the first and most important job of the President of the United States is to protect the lives and the security of the American people. Then we deal with what we need to do overseas. But first, we have to protect each other here at home. And you all will remember, for those of you who are old enough in this audience like me to remember, what it was like right after September 11th. But America didn't function. Airports were closed. Stock exchange and other financial institutions were closed. There were no sporting events, professional, amateur, or youth. Everything that makes the heartbeat of this country go had stopped. And why did it stop? Because we were afraid. Because we were convinced that the attack that happened on 9/11 was not going to be a one-shot deal, that it was going to happen again and again. Well, President Bush took the steps that were necessary to prevent that from happening again during the time of his presidency. And I was proud to be a part of that administration as the U.S. Attorney in New Jersey that helped to stop other attacks against Americans. We need a president who knows how to do that from day one in the Oval Office. Not someone who needs to read the owner's manual, but someone who knows how to do this. I'll end with this. You know, we made a mistake 7 years ago as a country. We made a mistake. We gave the presidency to a first-term United States Senator who had never run anything bigger in his life than his own Senate staff of 30 people. And we wondered when we put him in charge of the most complex government the world's ever known, we wonder why it wasn't working, why the VA was broken down, why health care continues to go up, and impediments to getting health care continue to go up, and the cost continues to go up. We wondered why educational costs and student debt continues to rise. We wonder all of these things that the government is not doing well. And we shouldn't have wondered for one moment. If you put someone in charge of something who's never run anything before, it's not going to go well. And if it does, it's only going well by luck. So let's not make the same mistake again. Let's not elect a first-term United States Senator to the presidency of the United States. Even if we agree with that person philosophically, it doesn't make them any more ready to run something. When I go into the Oval Office for the first time in January of 2017 and sit in that chair, I will not spin around on it and say, gee whiz, isn't it cool that I'm president? Okay? It won't be like a new thing for me. I'll sit in that chair and you know what I'll feel? I'll feel like this feels familiar. I've sat in a chair like this before, not quite as big, but a chair where the decisions come at you fast and furious. They're not put yes or no. You know, you sit on the floor of the United States Senate, they put something in front of you, you gotta vote yes or no. It's like school. They tell you when to show up, they tell you where to sit. They put a question out there, you get to vote yes or no, and if you don't like the way you vote, you get to change it. And then they tell you when you're dismissed and when you can go home. I can tell you as a governor, that's not the way it works. You show up for work every day, and whatever problem comes in the door, you got to figure it out. You have to answer it, and you have to be held accountable for the answer that you gave. You can't say, oh, I'm sorry, that got amended in the subcommittee. Let's not make the same mistake again. We have to put somebody in the Oval Office that has actually run something before, that knows what they're doing, that is unafraid to make decisions, and is used to being held accountable for those decisions, whether they've gone well or whether they've gone poorly. And for the last 13 years, that's what I've been doing. 7 years as the chief federal prosecutor in my state, where the decisions all came to my desk to be made, and 6 years as governor of New Jersey, which is a state that I lovingly call a bit unruly to govern. But with 750,000 more Democrats than Republicans and a Democratic legislature every minute of every day I've been governor, I know how to fight. And that's much more what it's like in Washington, D.C. right now than someplace else. So we have work to do, but we also have extraordinary opportunities in this country, and we wouldn't trade our citizenship in this country with anybody else in any other country. This is still the greatest place in the world to be, and it can be greater. We just have some work to do, and we need someone who knows how to do that work and help to lead this country, and that's why I'm here. I'm here to offer myself to play that role, and I'm here to answer your questions about what's on your mind and what you're concerned about. There's only one rule for my town hall meetings in Iowa. Just so you know, when I do town hall meetings in New Jersey, there are 4 rules. That'll tell you a little bit of the difference. Here's just one rule. You raise your hand, and I call on you, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. So let's get going. Yes, sir. And by the way, I'm impressed because the Broncos play soon. So you walking out in the middle of this now when the game starts? That's why he wants his question first. He's like, get my question out of the way, I can get out and see the start of the game.
Yeah, if this goes a little long.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, but
No, just raise your hand again, and I'll step aside. You can walk right out. I understand, no problem.
I appreciate that. You know, the last thing you said there was that, you know, we need someone with experience. And we all know, everyone in this room, that follows politics, between you getting to sit in that seat and right now there's Donald Trump. And his claim to experience is his business experience. And as governor of New Jersey, you've overseen the problems in Atlantic City that it's going through right now. My older brother lives right out there. He knows all about it. And so I was wondering, as someone who has a front row seat at the legacy of Donald Trump's business decisions in Atlantic City, is that really a qualification for him to be president, or is that a disqualification for him to be president?
It doesn't appear to me to be a qualification. Listen, here's the problem with having business experience as your only qualification for being president. You know, when Donald doesn't like something that goes wrong, he just looks at the person who didn't do it and says, "You're fired." Okay? That's good, except, you know, if the Speaker of the House doesn't post the bill he wants, he can't fire the Speaker of the House, as much as you might like to. You can't fire the Majority Leader in the Senate. You can't fire all of these people. That's not the way it runs. When you're a CEO, you have pretty much unbridled authority over your organization. That's not the way it works in Washington, D.C., or in government anywhere. Been any number of times I would love to fire the leaders in my legislature. And it doesn't work that way. And so business experience only takes you so far. Because what do you do then? When you've never worked with a legislature that disagrees with you, that has different political goals than you, that's worried about their own reelection. No one in the Trump organization is worried about getting reelected. So the fact is that business experience only takes you so far. And the fact is that you can't manage the same way as a CEO and as President of the United States. And the founders set it up that way. They didn't want to have a dictator in the Oval Office. They wanted someone who was the head of one of the three co-equal branches of government. And that the three co-equal branches would balance each other off and be checks and balances on each other. And so we should be careful about that idea, because we have to learn how to work together. And I've had to do that in New Jersey. Like I said, every minute of every day I've been governor, I've had a Democratic legislature. So that means I wake up every morning knowing I'm not going to get everything I want. So does that mean you go and stand in the corner and hold your breath? It means you've got to go work. And you got to compromise, because you know what? You're not the only person in town with principles. You may disagree with their principles, but you have to find ways to work together. And so I think whether it's the legacy in Atlantic City or whether it's anything else, that even the good things that have been part of his business career, they don't qualify you for President of the United States, in my view. And I think if you just use your common sense on that, you know that's true. Now, I know people are really angry and really frustrated with government in general, so am I. And that's good. If it motivates you to get out and get involved and get informed and caucus on February 1st, I'm thrilled that anger and anxiety gets you to motivate, get out and work. That's great. But the only way your anger is going to subside is if you put it behind someone who can actually fix the things that are making you angry. If they're yelling about it and they don't know how to fix it, you're just going to be even more angry the next time this comes around. So let's use the frustration and the anger that we feel to channel it behind someone who can actually fix the problems that anger us. And I think if you look back at some of our best presidents of the last century, they've been governors, because we've known how to do this, whether it was Ronald Reagan on the right or Franklin Roosevelt on the left, Teddy Roosevelt. You look at some of our greatest presidents, they've been governors. And so, you know, this experience that I've had over the last 6 years will help me feel much more comfortable when I sit down the first time. No one's going to have to explain this to me. And there's not going to be an owner's manual in the top center desk drawer. It's not any place for on-the-job training. And go Broncos. So, because I'm a Cowboys fan, all right? I'm sorry. Which means I still have definitely nothing to brag about this year. That means I still have very deep-seated resentment for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So have at them today. This young man right here.
Yep.
She's got to take a video of it. All right, you tell me when you're ready. All right, she's ready.
So, Governor Christie,
My name is Sam Wessels. I am an 8th grader at Central Lyon in Rock Rapids, Iowa. I am also a disability advocate. As you may know, 1 in 5 people have a disability in the U.S. today. Of those, more than 3.5 million live with an autism spectrum, including myself. Autism has grown by 119.4% since the year 2000. Obviously, we're not exactly doing a whole lot to combat this devastating disorder. As of 2014, only 16.8% of individuals with a disability were employed, while 37% of adults with autism are not employed. Again, not enough is being done. So my question is, what will you do?
All right, good question. A few things. First off, I'm probably as familiar with this issue as any governor in the country because New Jersey has the highest rate of autism of any state in the nation. And so we have been dealing for quite some time and had a great volume in our state with this. And this has been something not only I've spent a lot of time on, but my wife has spent a lot of time on as well because it's an issue that she really personally cares deeply about. We've done a few things. We've increased funding both for preschool education and for after preschool education, K through 12 education, for folks at all ends of the autism spectrum. Secondly, we've done some things in terms of our dealing with the autism community as adults by making our state a work-first state. That everything that we do in terms of our programs is geared towards getting people prepared to work at jobs that are available and jobs that help them to reach their fullest potential. We have to get out of the mindset that folks who are on the autism spectrum can't work. They absolutely can work. And there's lots of jobs out there that they can do and do very well and feel fulfilled by doing every day. And so by making ourselves a work-first state, we have changed the way our human services, our health department, and our Department of Education deals with this issue to put our resources behind trying to make sure that young people and older folks are prepared as they both go through the school age years and then as they age out of that part of the system to be able to be ready for employment and to have our Department of Labor work with employers to educate them about what the capabilities and potential is of folks who are somewhere on the autism spectrum. I've also visited a number of specialized schools in our state that provide extraordinary education for folks who are somewhere on the autism spectrum to help them maximize their potential and supported those schools as well. And so there's a lot that still needs to be done. But in New Jersey, unfortunately, because of the large population of individuals with autism in my state, I've had a lot of opportunity to deal with this issue, and I'm going to bring that experience and the successes that we've had in New Jersey to the White House in January of 2017, and I think that will help not only you, but lots of other families that are in the same situation, that all I suppose your mom wants would be the same thing that I want for my 4 children, which is for you to reach the maximum of your potential, and for you to be happy and fulfilled with all the things that you're doing in your life, both in your education and in the future in your employment. And so I wish you all the best, and thanks for that really good question. Appreciate it.
Governor Christie, I mentioned to a few people that, hey, I kind of like Christie, and they're like, oh, yeah, but I don't know if he's going to protect our Second Amendment rights. Could you elaborate on that, please?
Sure. Hey, listen, that comes from the fact that I come from New Jersey. And so we have some of the worst gun laws in America. And those gun laws were all put in place by my Democratic predecessors with Democratic legislatures. So let me tell you what I've done since I've become governor. I've vetoed a proposed ban on a .50 caliber rifle. I've vetoed a reduction in magazine capacity from 15 to 10. I've vetoed a mandatory statewide ID system for gun owners in my state. We have now put forward regulations, the Attorney General has put forward regulations that are from a panel that we put together in the governor's office to make it easier to obtain a carry permit in our state. And lastly, when folks from out of state who legally own their firearms out of state have traveled through our state, there's been a half dozen of them in the past 6 years, who have been pulled over for other infractions, told the police officers that they had a firearm with them, and were arrested under our gun laws and faced jail time for a gun that they legally owned in their own state but could not legally possess in our state. Every one of those people, beginning all the way back in December of 2010, I've pardoned to make sure that they did not have, not only face any jail time, but not face any criminal record of any kind. The fact is that during my time as a prosecutor, one of the things that I learned was that we're spending much too much time talking about gun restrictions and new gun laws on folks who are law-abiding citizens, and much too little time on enforcing the laws we already have on the books against criminals. And so one of the things that we did in the Justice Department during that period of time was a project called Project Safe Neighborhoods, where we put much more emphasis on federal agents working with local law enforcement to get guns off the streets and out of the hands of criminals, and to send those criminals to jail for mandatory prison terms. First offense, 5 years, no parole. Second offense, 10 years, no parole if you were a felon who was illegally in possession of a handgun. That's what we're going to do to lower crime and violence in our streets, because to face facts, you know, criminals don't go through background checks. They don't respect a 48-hour waiting period. They purchase guns illegally, they steal them, they use them, they get rid of the serial numbers, they dump them, and they pick up another one. And if you look at the violence in our streets in places like Chicago or New York, they have some of the strictest gun laws in America, yet they have more violence on their streets. And so the fact is that as president, I would appoint an attorney general who would put the same kind of focus that Attorney General Ashcroft put, which was let's get criminals off the streets. And these new gun laws that everybody talks about, they're like cotton candy. You know, when you look at them, they look okay, and when you taste it, it doesn't taste bad. But then 5 minutes later, you forgot you ever had it because it doesn't have any long-term effect in fixing what you need. And it doesn't in New Jersey, and hasn't in other places that have tried it. So that would be my approach as president. I understand why people misunderstand that, because if they look at our gun laws, they say, well, he's the governor, why doesn't he change them? Well, it's part of what I was saying before. If you have a Democratic legislature who believes that the only way to solve this is through more and more gun laws, what I've done is prevented it from becoming worse in New Jersey. And as president, I would have a much different ability to be able to make things much better for folks in exercising their Second Amendment rights. Last thing I'll say is this. I don't think the founders made it the Second Amendment by mistake. I don't think that they, took all the amendments, put them in a hat, and picked them out randomly in order. The First Amendment is freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, prevention of the establishment of religion, freedom of association, all things that are bedrock principles of what our country is founded on. And the Second Amendment is the right to bear arms. Fact is that I don't think they did that by mistake. And we need to have respect for not only what our founders put in the Constitution, but how they prioritized it. And I would as president.
Thank you, Governor.
You're welcome, sir. Yes, ma'am.
We have 2 of our 6 kids here. Our oldest is a college student, and she's going to be saddled with a huge amount of debt when she graduates. And wondering, what kind of employment possibilities there's going to be in healthcare costs. And our middle child was born 5 days after 9/11. So she's never known a time when there wasn't conflict and scariness and bad news. What can you tell our kids that would give them some hope for the next 8 years?
Well, first off, let's start with your child who's in college right now and saddled with enormous amounts of debt. And this is something that I've heard in every part of the country, and something that I'm living with and experiencing right now. We have 2 children. 2 of our children are in college right now. One's a senior, one's a sophomore. Our oldest son is a senior at Princeton, and our oldest daughter is a sophomore at Notre Dame. And so the expenses are fairly high, to say the least. Here's the thing. There's a few things that we need to do in that regard, and also talk about employment possibilities as well. But the first thing is that we have to give you some better options in terms of the debt that you're running up. So, for instance, it's unconscionable that you can't refinance your student loan debt, and that we make money off of you. If you can finance it at a lower rate at a commercial bank or someplace else, you should be able to do that. What matters is that you pay the loan back, and we shouldn't be looking to make money off of you in that regard. So I would change that if I were president. Second, We should be giving folks a national service option, in my view, when they get out of school, beyond military service. If they want to go and help contribute to their community, their state, their country, then we should give them the opportunity to do that. There's lots of things that need to be done in this country that are not being done. And if young people come out with a lot of debt and they want to go in for a few years of national service right when they get out of school, that national service can be used to credit paying down some of those loans. And depending on how long you're there, pay off all the loans. The country gets something back in return. The young person realizes that there's something bigger than just their own self-interest in all this, but they also get the opportunity then to go out and start a career later, not saddled with debt, so that the decisions you make about what you want to do will be guided by your heart, what your passion is. And if that passion is something that doesn't pay you a whole ton of money in the beginning to be able to pay back those loans, that you won't have to say no to that. And then we take a job. We've all taken jobs at times where we did it just for the paycheck, and we didn't love what we were doing. That's part of life. But if you're coming out of college and you have the chance to follow your passion, it seems to me that would be a much better way to go. On the cost side, we need to do a couple of things too. I mentioned Notre Dame before. This summer, we got a letter, Mary Pat and I did, from the president of Notre Dame, Father John Jenkins. And the first paragraph was something like this. It's not an exact quote, but it was the gist of it. It said, "Dear parents, we want to thank you for the blessing that you've bestowed upon us by entrusting the souls of your children to our care for the next years for their education." That's a Catholic priest saying this, right? So from Notre Dame. So when you get done reading that paragraph, right, if you close your eyes, you can hear the theme from Rudy playing in the background, right? you can see Touchdown Jesus and the Golden Dome, right? Your heart's pounding. For any of you in this room who are Catholic, you know what the next paragraph is. It is the money paragraph. Right? So the next paragraph is, that's why we're so pleased to tell you that tuition this year is increasing only 3.9%. Now this isn't a 1% inflation world, right? Only 3.9%, which is the lowest annual tuition increase at Notre Dame in 40 years. 40 years. And they went ahead to say, that means total student cost this year is $62,500. So now, here's the question. If we made decisions about that expenditure, like we make decisions about every other expenditure in our life, we look at it and we say, okay, here's what's being offered to us at a certain price. What's the value of that? Can I afford it? And if I can't afford it, do I believe the value of what I'm paying is equal to the value of what I'm getting? If we made that decision that way, I might then, Mary Pat and I might call Sarah downstairs, this is over the summer, and say to her, Sarah, I know you love Notre Dame. I know you're having a great time there. I know you're getting a great education. But we don't necessarily think that the price anymore is equivalent to the value that you're getting. So we're going to send you someplace else that's less expensive. Now, for all of you who have sons or daughters of this age, imagine where that conversation goes from there, right? I mean, this is the daughter of mine who this morning, it seems warm compared to here. It's 7 degrees in South Bend and snowing. And I sent her a text. I said, how's it going out there? It looks like the weather's really bad. She wrote back, oh, it's no big deal, Dad. I love it. She doesn't really, but she loves Notre Dame. And so imagine me calling her downstairs and saying to her, Sarah, listen, we just can't do this. And, after the stamping of the feet and the crying and the slamming of the door and you're ruining my life and why are you doing this to me? You know what's going to happen, right? Right? You know what's going to happen. Mary Pat and I are going to sit at the table and we're going to figure out whatever it is we need to do to send her back. Borrow more money, do whatever we need to do, take a second mortgage, borrow money someplace else, have her borrow money, whatever we need to do. Here's the problem. They know that too. The colleges know that too. They know we're not making an intellectual decision. We're making an emotional decision. Every town hall I come into, whether I'm in Iowa or I'm in New Hampshire, I see, here's a guy with an Iowa Hawkeye sweatshirt on, right? You look around the room and there are College, Nebraska, Iowa. I don't know who's in there. Is that
St. Mary's?
St. Mary's, right? I mean, there's like everywhere you go. Why do we do this? And why do we do it years after we may have gone to Iowa or some other school? It's an emotional thing. We have an emotional connection to these places. So how do we get market forces then on that? Because market forces aren't covered when you're dealing just from an emotional perspective. So I think there's two things we need to do. The first thing is, imagine if you went downstairs into the ice cream parlor and you sat there with a group of 5 or 6 friends and you ordered a bunch of stuff and the waitress brought it over and then later you got the check and you flipped the check over and it just said food, $30. You'd say, could you write out exactly what everybody had and how much each one of those things cost. But think about the college bills that we pay. Now, I just wrote the check to Princeton right before I left for Iowa. It was 3 lines, the bill. Tuition, room and board, other fees. All right? 3 lines. And it was like $29,500. Okay. I didn't even ask any questions. If I'm paying $30 for ice cream downstairs, I'm asking questions. It makes no sense. So they should have to detail for us how they're spending our money. Because if they did, we'd be outraged and they'd be embarrassed. Guarantee you. I made fun of this over the summer. You know, I came to Iowa State, and I asked them, because my daughter had told me that at Notre Dame they have rock climbing walls. A couple of indoor rock climbing walls. Okay. So, and I know my daughter's never climbed those rock walls. I know that. So I asked the kids at Iowa State, I go, do you guys have rock climbing walls here? They go, yeah, we have rock climbing walls here. Okay. I mean, I guess, okay, it's Iowa. There's not a lot of rocks to climb. So, all right, maybe okay, it's okay for here at Iowa. Then I went to New Hampshire. And I went to the University of New Hampshire. And I asked them, do you guys have rock climbing walls? They said, yeah. I said, you have rocks. I mean, this is the granite state, right? You have rocks and mountains everywhere. You want to climb rocks, go outside and climb rocks. Why are we building walls inside for you to climb rocks? And it, you know, the press reported afterwards, this is Christie's assault on fitness. And I say to all of you, like, look at me. Okay? I've assaulted fitness in lots of ways. This is definitely not one of them, all right? So, like, but it's just one example. How many buildings are built that are just a monument to somebody's ego because they gave a little bit of money to the college? How many vice presidents in charge of paperwork do we have? How many different things are spent in college that let's make them put them down and tell us what they're spending? What's tuition break down to? What are you spending it on? How much are professors getting paid? How much vacation do they have? How much are you paying for that? All of those things. Second thing we need to do is then let you unbundle your bill. So the bill comes in and it gives you options. What do you want to pay for? What do you use? And let you pick that instead of paying for all of it. That's a market force then. I'll guarantee you nobody's paying for the rock climbing wall. No parent or student is checking off, oh yeah, the rock climbing wall, gotta have that. Make sure I get my pass for the rock climbing wall. If 98% of the people don't pick one of those items, it's not going to get paid for. It's not going to get built anymore. We're not going to have it. And you ask me, how am I going to make them do those 2 things? If they don't do those 2 things, they can't participate in the federal student loan program or the federal student grant program. You want to take our taxpayer money? Okay. Then you got to tell us what you're spending our money on, and you got to give us a chance to make this education more affordable. On the part about jobs, you know, if we don't stop letting the government pick winners and losers, if we don't let the private enterprise system work again in this country, if we don't stop regulating and taxing everything that moves, we're not going to build jobs again that are going to pay well and that are going to interest you or any of your children. This president has decided, like 2014, 81,000 pages of new federal regulation in 1 year. I mean, man, forget about who reads that. Who writes it? Who writes 81,000 pages of regulation? Those people must never stop writing. From the beginning of the year to the end of the year, right? And what happens? A small business like this one, $10,000 per employee to comply with federal regulation, according to the Small Business Administration of the Obama administration. And if you're a manufacturer, it's $34,000 per employee to comply with regulation. Well, of course, all the money is going towards complying with what the government wants as a winner or a loser, and not what the employer wants to do in terms of growing or expanding his or her business, employing more people, raising salaries, expanding, doing whatever they want to do. So we need a president, once again, who understands that the American economy is great because of the American people, not because of the American government. And you've seen now over the last 7 years, who's done well in the last 7 years? Only the rich. Now they're getting whacked the last couple of weeks on the stock market, but before that time, the stock market went in a straight line up from the time this president got in to over 17,000 in the Dow. So the rich are doing really well under Barack Obama. The guy who complains all the time about income inequality, he's done more for the rich than any president in recent times. We need a president, once again, that's going to decide that small business folks need to get regulation off their back, lower taxes, so that they can put money into their business and give you an opportunity to get the type of things you need to get. Last thing on the,
Can I add something about
Yeah.
what she said? So
Yeah.
I go to the University of Iowa, so this is a state university.
Yep.
I learned a few years ago that, I'm a non-traditional student, so this is actually the second time I've been in college and going down a different path. I learned that the coach of the Iowa Hawkeyes makes the most money out of anybody that is a state employee. He makes $1.3 million a year. That doesn't include bonuses for winning seasons. Yeah, we went to the Rose Bowl, yeah, we lost, whatever. Okay, so, but my point is, why can't, like, that's a state university. If you want to do that with a public college, go for it. But why is my tuition going up? Yeah, sorry, a private college. They can pay whatever they want because their funding isn't coming from the from the state. How is it okay for a state employee to make $1.3 million a year when I'm paying $20,000 in debt? Because I'm paying for it myself.
Yep.
$20,000 at least in debt every single year. And I'm going to be a teacher, and I'm not going to make very much money when I'm done.
no.
So
Yeah,
it
listen-
bothers me that there's no regulation for things like that.
Well, here's the thing.
Which
Um,
I'm a libertarian, so I'm against regulation, but anyway. But I'm just saying, like, statewide, like, this
I
is
understand.
wrong.
Listen, and you know, I think he's making more than 1.3 million.
This was a few years ago.
Yeah, right. So Kirk's making more than that, and like we're Rutgers now. Our state university is now in the Big Ten for the first time in the last 2 years, and we see how much more we have to pay for coaches, not only football coaches, but in the other sports, because we're now competing with schools like Iowa, like Michigan and Michigan State and Ohio State, all the folks who are in the Big Ten, who are paying coaches a lot of money. Now the argument, and I've had this back and forth over the course of time in New Jersey with when Rutgers was deciding to go into the Big Ten. You know, the argument is, well, you know, when we do really well in football or we do really well in other sports, then it attracts more applications to the school, it attracts more students to the school, revenue grows. So they make all those arguments. But your bigger point is a right one, which is that we have to be concerned about the affordability for somebody who wants to go and actually advance their life. And that's why, you know, if you're making priorities and you say, okay, the football coach should make X because he's bringing in X, all right, well then make that argument. But that can't apply to everybody. It can't apply to everybody, and we need to have a system that allows you to pick what it is needs, especially now you coming in an alternative path now, coming in for the second time, and paying for all this yourself. You know, the fact is that if you don't have the opportunity to pick and choose what's best for you, one or two things is going to happen. You're going to have enormous debt, and or you're going to wind up walking away. And that doesn't make the state better. That doesn't make the country better when we do those things. And so what I'm talking about is about setting priorities. And you get to set them. The consumer should set the priorities. You know, you want to get money from us? Well, here's what we want. And that's why you're seeing online education, other types of education explode. Because people are saying, you know what? Maybe I don't need this. And that's what the colleges and universities are really pushing back against now, because they don't like this, because it's breaking up the old model. Well, what they should think about is their excesses have forced the new model to come forward, because people were dying for an alternative to having to do what you're doing right now. Now, on the post 9/11 stuff, listen, this is a dark and dangerous world. It just is. And it gets darker and more dangerous when America absents themselves from leadership in the world. And American leadership in the world is both an opportunity and a burden, but it's not a choice, in my opinion. If we don't lead in the world, and I don't mean being the world's policeman, I mean leading, bringing people together, getting other people to help and do the things that need to be done. You see what's happening in the world right now. This president has pulled us back from the world. His whole theory in 2008 was America's the cause of violence around the world. America's the reason, whether it was in Iraq or Afghanistan. We're the reason. We're causing the tumult in the world. So he pulls us back. What happens when he pulls us back? Russia's in Syria. Russia's in Crimea. Russia's in Ukraine. The Chinese are building artificial islands in the South China Sea to set up as military bases. You know, the Iranians are building nuclear capability. The North Koreans are, you know, exploding and testing nuclear capability. All because America has pulled back and these folks think, well, it's like, you know, when the substitute teacher comes in. I mean, Barack Obama's like the substitute teacher. You know? I mean, I got nothing against substitute teachers, but the kids know. I don't have to deal with you for very long. So I can get you mad for a day or two, but the real person's coming back and, you know, I'll probably skate after that. The problem is that's the way this president is acting. He's like a substitute teacher. We need to once again project, both in our language and in our actions, strength and leadership in the world. Other countries in the world want us to lead. And the only way we're going to get back to a sense of safety and security in this country is for us to lead and make that safety and security happen. And it's not easy. And it's not going to happen overnight. And this president has pushed us backwards in all that. So I can't promise your child who was born right after 9/11 that in the next year or two, the things are going to get significantly better. I don't know that they will. But I will tell you this, that folks will say a lot of different things about me. One of the things they never said is that I'm misunderstood. I'm pretty plain, I'm pretty direct, and I will be so with our allies and our adversaries around the world. Our allies will know that when I give my word on something, we will keep our word, no matter whether it makes my poll numbers go up or down. And our adversaries will know the limits of our patience. And right now they keep pushing us and pushing us and pushing us, and this president continues to let them do it. And it's like the bully who steals your lunch money. They'll steal it every day if they can. And the first time they don't is when you punch them back. And we need to start pushing back a little bit here, because we're being pushed around by Iran, we're being pushed around by Russia, by North Korea and others in the world, and it is not making us safer, it's making us less safe. So I want a world where he or she, where's the one born after 9/11? I want a world where you're going to be safer, where you're going to be safer. But that's going to mean that we're going to have to work together to make sure that happens the right way. And I can't promise you it's going to happen overnight. But this president has moved us back over 7 years. We're not going to fix it in a year or two. We're going to have to work hard to fix it together. All right. Yes, ma'am, in the back.
Okay, so I want a safer world too. And I think the economy, education, healthcare, all hinge on one right, and that is the right to life. At this time in our country, since January 22nd, 1973, 58 million children have lost their life. 58 million children, preborn children have lost their lives in the womb. What can you do, what have you done as governor to protect the rights of the preborn children?
Well, first, I'm the first pro-life governor in the history of New Jersey. Since that day in 1973, we had not had a pro-life governor until I was elected in 2009. And I can tell you that there were plenty of people in New Jersey who told me I'd never be elected being pro-life, and that I should change my position if I wanted to get elected. I had said, I'm sorry, this is what I believe and what I feel, and people have a right to know it. I've defunded Planned Parenthood, not talked about it, but defunded them for the last 6 years in New Jersey. From the very first moment that I became governor till today, they have not received state funds from our state budget. And I've continued to speak out and advocate for a pro-life position, whether it's standing on the steps on January 22nd of every year at the pro-life rally in our state and speak to them as the governor from the steps of the State House, or whether it's in the conversations that I have with folks like you and others in town hall meetings, not only here in Iowa, New Hampshire, but across New Jersey, and the 134 town hall meetings that I've had in New Jersey since I've been governor. But here's something I want to make sure that we talk about too. Because when you say you're pro-life, and I say I'm pro-life, we need to be pro-life for the whole life.
Absolutely.
And so I've spent a lot of time talking about the scourge and the disease of drug addiction in our society, and it's killing people. It's killing our children. It's killing other folks as well. And sometimes we forget, you know, the 9 months that we're in the womb is in some respects the easiest time to be pro-life. They haven't come out yet and done anything to disappoint us. When they come out then, becoming pro-life and staying pro-life is tougher because life intervenes, bad choices, bad decisions. But the 16-year-old girl who's addicted to heroin on the floor of the county lockup, her life is just as much a precious gift from God as the child in the womb. And we need to start lifting the stigma away from that. Now, I am completely anti-drug. I would be enforcing the laws against marijuana all across this country and not let states go ahead and have some states say it can be legal. No chance. I believe those are gateway drugs. They affect the mind. They're bad for anyone in our society. But we have to lift the stigma away from people getting treatment. This is a disease, and people are addicted. And when they first try, it's a bad decision. And I tell my kids, and I'm sure you tell yours, don't do it. We tell people all the time, don't do certain things. They're human beings. They're imperfect. We all are. So they make bad choices. We can't then abandon people. And so what I want us as a party to be talking about is not only to stand up strongly for every one of the children who are in the womb, that they have a chance to execute their constitutional right to life, but also that when they get out, that when they disappoint us, when they let us down, when they show us the imperfections that God has placed into all of us, that we need to stand with those folks too. And that when folks get elderly, it's not the choice of us when that life ends, it's when God decides to end that life. So assisted suicide in our country is something that I believe should not happen, because I believe it is God who makes those choices about when life, natural life ends, and not human beings. And so my point to you is that I think that when we restrict the conversation on being pro-life, which some do, to just that period of 9 months, we restrict our ability to win over people's hearts and minds to the cause in general. Because everyone has that experience, whether it's with a family member, a friend, a neighbor, a coworker, of someone being addicted to drugs. And when they understand that the pro-life movement is not just about the womb, but it's about that person too. Because what we're saying is that each life is an individual gift from God, and that it needs to be treated preciously that way, and not given away for any reason. And so as president, I would continue to advocate for those type of policies across the entire spectrum and speak out. I would want to make sure that the people that heard my voice, that I had an opportunity to try to win their heart. I'll end with this. I wasn't always pro-life. My heart and my mind was changed 21 years ago. We want to have converts to this cause. Because not everyone's born thinking this way, but if we work with people and we, with respect, talk to them about why we believe the way we believe, we can win hearts, we can win minds, and we can make our country a country that stands by the words of the Constitution, that everyone has a right to life. Life first, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those are the things that I think we need to be talking about.
Well, I am pro-life and I have a father who's in the nursing home over here with Parkinson's, and he has the right to life, and I believe strongly in the things you just said. Recently, the Congress presented our president with a bill to defund Planned Parenthood, and of course he vetoed it. Both the Congress and the Senate had passed this. What would you do if you were president and you received this?
I'd sign it. The same way I defunded Planned Parenthood for the last 6 years as governor of New Jersey by not including it in our budget. And vetoed then the legislature putting it back in. I vetoed it, and the Republicans in my legislature sustained my veto. So for 6 years now, we have not had funding of Planned Parenthood in New Jersey, and as long as I'm governor, we won't.
What are your priorities in considering nominations for the Supreme Court?
Listen, my priorities are that first and foremost, you pick people who will understand what their role is. The rightful role as a judge is to interpret the law, not to make the law. So that's the first thing. Because we've got too many folks who get on the bench and decide that if they don't agree with something that the legislature has done, that they're just going to rewrite it. That's not their job. No one's elected them to do that, and they're not subject to recall by the people. And so that's close to a tyranny, which you don't want to have. Secondly, in terms of the kind of folks I would pick, if you're looking for examples, look at Justice Sam Alito on the United States Supreme Court. Justice Alito was the U.S. Attorney in New Jersey before me. I've gotten to know him well over the years. He is, I think, a smart, reliable, steady conservative who, most of the time when I read his opinions, 9 times out of 10 I agree with him. And he interprets the Constitution, interprets laws, doesn't make them. So those are the kind of judges we want. So if I became president, one of the first things I'd do if I had an opening on the Supreme Court would be to go to Justice Alito and say to him, who are the really great conservative judges across all the circuits in this country? Give me a list of them so I can go start meeting with some of them and interviewing them, because those are the kind of people I'd want to pick. That's where he came from in the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. I think President Bush made a great choice putting him on, and those are the kind of people that I would put on the bench. All right, yes, ma'am.
I'm a student here in Iowa, and a lot of my peers are worried about getting jobs after school. But environmental leaders like Bill McKibben are saying that America needs to lower our standard of living if we have any hope of saving the environment. And he's even gone as far as suggesting that we approach third world countries like Ethiopia. And that seems like really bad news for my future. So what would you have to say to folks like McKibben?
He's wrong. He's wrong, and it is really bad news for your future, and you're right. And that's why, you know, in New Jersey, when I first became governor, we belonged to something called the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, which was a northeastern consortium of all the states from Maine to New Jersey. That was a cap and trade program, essentially, was to put higher taxes and fees on ratepayers for electricity, and in return use that money to fight global warming. My view on that was it made no sense, and so I pulled this out of the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. We haven't been in since. And what's happened in New Jersey without the heavy hand of government? 53% of our electricity in New Jersey is produced by nuclear power.
Okay.
Right? So we got to get over 3 Mile Island. It happened a long time ago. And in the most densely populated state in the country, New Jersey is by far and away the most densely populated. We're all over each other. We're on top of each other all the time. Right? 8.9 million people in that little space. We have safely operated for 4 decades nuclear power plants. That helps our environment, and it's a very low-cost way of developing electricity as well. Second, this is one where you could win a bet with anybody. Ask them who the top 3 producing states are for solar power in the country. Arizona and California are the first 2. Those are pretty easy to guess. Big states with lots of sunshine. Number 3 is New Jersey. How do we do that? We worked with the private sector to make solar power affordable in the state. And people started to use it. And we're now the 3rd largest solar producing state in the country. If you drive around my state, it's almost like driving around here and you see wind turbines everywhere. In New Jersey, you see solar arrays on top of shopping malls, on top of parking garages, on top of roofs of houses, on top of manufacturing plants. And we're developing our solar capability in a way that's really positive for the environment, but also it's not a new tax and it's cost effective for the people of our state. We're in the midst now of building 3 new natural gas-fired plants in our state that will replace older coal plants that we have now. It's a cleaner way of burning it, and because the Marcellus Shale is right next door in Pennsylvania, we've been able to build the transmission lines to be able to bring that gas to us, and it's become much more affordable for us to use natural gas. My point is that each state should have the opportunity to be able to do what they think is best in the best interest of their state. So here in Iowa, the renewable fuel standards and biofuels and wind have been the choice of Iowans. That's in part because of the nature of your state. You have a big state, an expansive state that can, if we put wind turbines on land in New Jersey, there wouldn't only be dead birds, there'd be dead people. Right? We couldn't do that. But here it works, right? So let Iowa do what works for Iowa. You have the most extraordinary agricultural community in the world. Well, good, then use that for renewable fuels. That's a good thing, and it helps the rest of the country as well. That's why I'm in favor of the RFS, because we've invested in it, it makes sense, and it makes sense for Iowa. So each state in my presidency would have the opportunity to pick which one they thought was best without us attempting to dictate from Washington, D.C. what works for all of you. Last piece is, this climate agreement that he signed in Paris is ridiculous. It allows China to pollute in an unabated way, unchanged for the next 15 years, while we get restrictions placed upon us immediately. Those are the things that should really concern you about your future, because it makes our country less and less competitive from a world economic perspective when they can pollute all they want and we have restrictions placed upon us. That's not a good deal, but that's a Barack Obama deal. I wouldn't let him negotiate to buy my car, let alone do any of that. Yes, ma'am.
Can you just discuss your plan for entitlements? It seems to be an issue that's not been talked about much on the campaign, and it's a huge issue for the sustainability of this country long term.
So glad you brought it up. I am the only candidate in this race with an entitlement reform plan. The only one. I put it out in April. And I kept thinking someone's going to come up with a plan, like an alternative plan to mine. They don't. And if you watch the debates on Thursday night, Senator Rubio got asked a question about entitlements, and he gave an answer on tax reform. And then they went to Senator Cruz on entitlements. Senator Cruz gave an answer in response to Senator Rubio's tax plan. And then they went back to Senator Rubio, and he responded on why he doesn't like Senator Cruz's tax plan. And as he started to do that, you might remember I jumped in and said, can I interrupt this debate on the floor of the United States Senate to actually answer the question that you asked on entitlements? Here's why it's so important and why your instinct on this is right. And you may know these statistics, and if you do, bear with me. 71 cents of every dollar spent in today's federal budget, today, is spent on entitlements and debt service. 71 cents of every dollar the federal government spends is on entitlements and debt service. To give you a comparison, in 1960, when John Kennedy was elected president, it was 26 cents. So why do we have all this growth in the 60s and 70s and 80s? We were spending our money on the future. 74 cents of every dollar was on tomorrow. Today, 71 cents of every dollar is on yesterday. What we borrowed before and what we have to pay to folks who are in retirement. We cannot sustain this as a country. And when people ask me about $19 trillion in debt, I say to you, well, if you want to get at the debt, why are you arguing about the 29 cents and ignoring the 71 cents? You know, it's like what they asked Willie Sutton why he robbed banks. He's like, I said, that's where the money is. So if we're gonna fix what's wrong with the federal budget, we got to go after it. So I have a 12-point plan on entitlements. Don't be concerned. I'm not going to go over all 12. The Broncos fans like, gee, please, for God's sake. It's 3:05. You're killing me. Don't go over the 12. Don't worry, I won't, buddy. I understand. Here's the thing. I have a 12-point plan. I'll go over 4 of them. All right? Okay. And then go to my website at chrischristie.com for the rest of them. They've been scored. It saves over $1 trillion over the next 10 years. But here's the principle of it. Principle number 1 on Social Security. We have to raise the retirement age. And we have to do it because we're living longer. I mean, it's a good thing, everybody. Shouldn't be depressed about it. The average life expectancy for a woman in this country now is 83. The average life expectancy for a man is 79. I see some of the women smiling. I just want to remind you something. 10 years ago, you were 6 years ahead of us. Now you're 4. We're gaining on you. And this 4-year vacation you're expecting at the end of your life from us, you may not get it. You may be stuck with us the entire time. But these programs were developed when folks were in their 60s, dying in their 60s. It doesn't work anymore. So what I say is raise the retirement age 2 years and do that phasing in over 25 years. So it's 1 month a year of increased eligibility every year for 25 years. Now, this will not affect anyone who's on Social Security now, or if you're very close to Social Security, it affects you by a couple of months. So that your planning for your life and your retirement won't be greatly affected. But it's going to affect me. It's going to affect you, and it should, because by the time we get to that age, and I'm a lot closer to it than you are, but by the time we get there, we're going to be living even longer than 83 and 79. And so we need to do that. Second thing we need to do is we have to means test Social Security. Now, I understand that everybody paid in. Everybody played by the rules. They paid every 2 weeks their FICA tax. I remember my son, who's in college now, got his first job, and he brought home his pay stub, and he's like, what's this FICA thing? It's a lot of money. I'm like, yeah, you'll learn, dude, you'll learn. Glad you're working now. We all paid in, but here's the thing. The government lied to you, and they stole your money. They just did. I mean, there's supposed to be a trust fund for Social Security, right? There's nothing but IOUs in the trust fund. They're spending the money now. As fast as it comes in, they're spending it. And they're giving you IOUs in return. This has been mentioned in 3 of the debates. The one I just talked about where Senator Rubio and Senator Cruz talked about tax reform rather than talk about entitlements. And then in the first debate, it was me and Governor Huckabee. And Governor Huckabee, he had a great idea. His idea was that he was going to institute a tax. I swear to you, go back and look at the video. He said, I'm going to institute a tax that will help to save Social Security because we'll finally tax pimps and prostitutes. Now, I don't know what I thought running for president was going to be like, but I never thought I'd be on a national stage in front of 25 million people talking pimps and prostitutes, okay? But I can tell you this much, I've been to 49 of our 50 states in the last 2 years, and I can tell you that there's not enough going on with the pimps and prostitutes out there to fix the Social Security problem. As hard as they're working, it's not going to be enough, okay? And they're working hard. Then in the next debate, it was me and Donald Trump, right? And remember, they said, Governor Christie, you have this plan. I went through the plan. Then they went to Trump. What do you think? He goes, no, I don't like that. I don't like that one bit. I like that one bit. When I'm president, everyone's going to be rich. They're going to be so rich. We're all going to be so rich we don't have to worry about Social Security anymore. Okay. Like, I guess I'd sign up for that plan too if I actually thought it was going to happen, right? We're all going to be so rich, you're not going to worry about Social Security after he's president. Okay. So they came back to me and I said, well, would Mr. Trump at least be willing to give up his Social Security? Because he's the guys I'm looking for. And he goes, yes, I would. I'd give mine. I said, good. It's a good start, Donald. We got you. Let's get some other people to give up their Social Security. If you make over $200,000 a year in retirement, now this means you've stopped working. This doesn't count your home. This is your any pension or any other income you get from your investments. If you make over $200,000 a year in retirement, I say no Social Security check for you. And here's why. You don't need it. Now I know you paid for it. I get it. They stole the money though. So now I've got to decide as the leader of this country, who gets the money that's left? Should it be the person who's making over $200,000 a year who will make no difference in their quality of life? Or should it be for the person who that check is going to make the difference between rent and heat and food? I think most Americans would say, I don't like this, I'm angry about it, but you know what? We're going to take care of those folks. We're going to take care of those folks first. And so that's why I think we have to means test Social Security. And I understand it's not fair, but the fact is that they stole the money, and so we have to deal with it. The same thing with Medicare. Increase eligibility 2 years, phase it into over 25. And for means testing, if you make over $200,000 a year, we reduce your subsidy of your premium from 75% to 10%. So you still get some subsidy, but you don't get as much as you used to because you can afford to pay it. Now, here's the difference, the last thing I'll say about this between me and Hillary Clinton when we're running against each other in the fall. She's going to say, take the cap off the Social Security tax and let everybody pay payroll tax on every dollar they make because that's the rich people. All right? Well, who are the people I'm trying to take the benefit from? They're making $200,000 a year or more in retirement? I'd say that's fairly rich. So it's not like she's not going to favor the rich and I am. Here's the difference, though. Which would you rather do? You know, it's a checkbook balancing problem. Right? When you can't balance your checkbook, you either have to spend less or bring more in. She wants to bring more in, I want to spend less. Why would you ever give the people who lied to you and stole from you more money? Because this time they say, I swear, we won't do it again. This is the government of the United States. Of course they'll do it again. The minute a hard decision needs to be made about raising taxes or cutting spending someplace else, or oh, look at that pile of money over there that nobody's watching right now. Maybe we can take that and no one will notice and we'll deal with it later. Or the next guy or woman will deal with it. Don't do this. This would be like if someone came here to Lamar's and they opened up a bank. And you put your money in the bank. And then 2 years later, the bank went belly up. And you lost some of your money. You're unhappy about it. Then a year later, the same guy who opened the bank that went belly up comes to your front door, knocks on the door and says, hey, how you doing? Remember me? I ran that bank. I've opened a new bank, and I'd love to have your deposits. You look at him and go, hey, you're the guy who the bank went belly up, and I lost some of my money. Why would I give you more money? And you go, well, because I learned my lesson. Listen, Iowa people are really nice. I've learned that over the last 9 months. But he is not leaving your front door with more of your money. I guarantee you. So why would you give it to the government? So that's the argument we have to have as a country. And I don't know why none of the other candidates on our side is talking about this, but I suspect it's because whenever you talk about this, someone gets angry. Someone says, well, I paid my money, I want my money back. Well, listen, I'm happy to have that argument with folks because the money you paid is gone. And I'm sorry, I didn't steal it, but if I'm the next president, I'm responsible for making it right. And I think you want to hear the truth. I mean, listen, if you want politicians who are going to lie to you, there's plenty of them. We got a line of them. They'll be happy to tell you exactly what you want to hear, and then when they get in office, they're going to do something else. So that's why I put out that plan. It was the first thing I did in this campaign in April, because I think you are right. It is the most important issue for the sustainability of our government and for the lives of our citizens going forward to know that there's a stable, secure, safe Social Security system for the people who really need it and a Medicare system so that people can get the health care they need in their older years. So that's what I was doing. They're now telling me, because the Bronco fan is looking at the clock, it's 3:15, kickoff is 3:45?
3:40.
3:40. He wouldn't even give me the 5 minutes, right? 3:40, buddy. All right, so we're gonna go to last question so that I don't, drive the football fans insane, and maybe a second one if the answer for this one is shorter. Yes, sir, right here.
What are you going to do about Common Core?
Common Core. Well, listen, I tried it in New Jersey. My predecessor started to put it in place when I became governor, and I said, okay, let's give it a try. We tried it for 4 years, and we're getting rid of it now. And the reason we're getting rid of it is 3 reasons. Teachers don't like it, parents don't like it, and students don't like it. So pretty much, in the education world, there ain't a whole lot of people left in that group. So we tried it in New Jersey, and here's what the problem was. It started off as a good idea. It started off with the nation's governors working together to try to come up with standards that were the same standards, just standards, not curriculum, standards that were the same across the whole country. It got hijacked by the Obama administration, and it started to get into curriculum and exactly how you teach things, and started to take away power from the states. My view is this: the decisions on how your children are educated should be made in your town. Your local Board of Education should make those decisions, and here's why. They know the local standards and the local values better than anybody in Washington, D.C. And second, if you don't like it, you just get in the car and drive over to the school board, and your voice is going to be heard. You try to get your voice heard at the Federal Department of Education, forget it. You'll get a form letter back if you're lucky. So I think we need to pull back from this all across the country, let local folks decide how to do it. We now, our State Board of Education just voted this past week on New Jersey-based standards and New Jersey-based curriculum. And they've changed a lot of what was going on before. I'm glad they did it. I encouraged them to take a look at it and try to come up with a better system. This was New Jersey-based, that teachers and administrators and parents were bought into. That's what we should do across the whole country.
If you go back to the Constitution, according to the Constitution, education is supposed to be handled by whom?
Yeah, by the states. It's a 10th Amendment thing, right?
Done.
I had a bunch of kids yesterday in Ames who had their pocket constitutions, and they said, would you sign your favorite amendment? So I was doing nothing but signing the 10th Amendment yesterday, which says if it's not listed here, the power goes back to the states. If you're a governor, you would love that the 10th Amendment were actually followed by a President of the United States. When I'm president, especially as a former governor, we're going to follow the 10th Amendment. Federal government's got plenty to do in keeping us safe and secure and dealing with our foreign policy. We don't need to be micromanaging education policy town by town across a country of 330 million people. That's what I'll do as president. That was a pretty short answer. I'll give you another one. Remain calm. Yes, ma'am, right over here.
When you're president or even as governor, it can be pretty easy to get a big ego and think that you're it. You know what's going on and your way. How do you keep yourself grounded?
This. I mean, one of the reasons why I did town hall meetings as governor, I've done 134 of them, is when you get into the center of a room and the people that you're working for get to ask you whatever question they want to ask you and say whatever it is they want to say, it's kind of hard to keep a really big ego. And that was part of the reason I did it, because you're right that being a governor or a president can be really isolating. You know, you drive around in these black SUVs. I have state troopers with me all the time. I never go in the front door of any place anymore. Like, I'm always in the back door of some place. I walk through more kitchens than I could count, right? And then all of a sudden I walk into the middle of some room and hear all these people, you know, and then you get right back in the car. I mean, when I go on the weekend to go get my dry cleaning, to go to the deli, to go to the bank, I got state troopers with me. It's so discreet. And, you know, all that stuff can add to the idea that somehow you're different and you're special. Well, when you're governor or president, you are different. Your responsibilities are different, and as a public figure that makes controversial decisions at times, there are some people who are, you know, could be looking to hurt you. So you got to be smart about that. But the town hall meetings are the things that have done it for me the most. Between the town halls I've done in Iowa, New Hampshire, and the ones in New Jersey, I've now done over 200 town hall meetings in 6 years. And they help to keep me grounded, because I have to interact and answer any person who walks in that door. And you know, today, nobody got screened. You didn't have to have any kind of special invitation. You have to be on some list. You heard about it, you read about it, you wanted to come in and walk in, you raise your hand, I call on you, you get to ask me whatever you want. It's hard to get too big ahead when you have to stand up here for a couple hours and answer those questions directly. And it reminds you also who you work for. So as president, I would want to continue to do town hall meetings. I'm sure that would make the Secret Service thrilled. But they'll adjust. Their job is to figure out, when I do what I want to do, how to protect me and make sure that I'm safe. So probably a little more security than when you walked in here today. But despite that, I want to answer those questions. I want to be exposed to it, and you can feel what people feel about you then. You don't have to count on polls or news reports on television, but you can stand across from someone and you can tell from the look in their eyes whether they think you're being straight with them or whether they think you're full of it. And so that's what I've done as governor, and I would do the same thing as president. I would continue doing town halls as president, because I think it's really important for me to hear from the people that I'm working for. It reminds you who you're working for. And I think that's really, really important. And it's been great for me. And believe me, go on YouTube and see some of my town hall meetings from New Jersey. They haven't always been a love fest, okay? There's been a lot of very interesting back and forth between me and my citizens. My people have expressed themselves at times when they don't like what I'm doing or they don't like what I'm saying. And that's fine. That's their right. It's my right to answer them back. And I've answered them back vigorously any number of times, as you may have seen. But that's what it's all about. We have to interact and be honest with each other. We can all be politically correct and stand on ceremony if you want, but that's not going to move the country forward in my view. And so that's what I would do, ma'am, in order to try to keep myself grounded, keep myself connected, and continue to do the job in the right way. Let me say a couple things to you before I go. The first is thank you. It's certainly not the greatest weather day in the world today. And for all of you to come to an ice cream parlor, hey, that's pretty good. You had to be interested enough to want to hear me and consider my thoughts and my views as you get to decide 2 weeks from tomorrow who you're going to caucus for. And so I tell folks all the time who ask me what it's like when I go home to New Jersey, and they ask me, what's it like to campaign for president in Iowa and New Hampshire? What I tell them is it renews your faith in democracy. Because here you are on a Sunday afternoon, and you're taking the time to be out here, leave your home, come here, listen to me, and ask questions in order to try to consider who the best person is to vote for President of the United States. For people who get cynical about our democracy, they should see this. And not just now, 2 weeks beforehand. You all have been doing this for a year and listening to us for a year. I said to someone in a diner this morning in Milford, I said to them, we're out of your hair in 2 weeks, okay? We're out of your mailbox, off your TV set and your radios. We'll give you a little break until the fall, 2 weeks from now. But you all have been wonderfully hospitable hosts to me and to all the other candidates in listening to us and giving us a chance, and I really appreciate that. And it's a real great boost for our democracy to know that you all are here. Second thing is, this has been an enormously entertaining campaign. Even to be part of it, it's been entertaining. I mean, think about it. We have governors and former governors, senators and former senators. We have business people, and we have a character. And it's been entertaining to watch and to participate in. It really has. And I'm sure there have been many times you've watched things on TV or heard things on the radio and broke out laughing. I know I have. And so that's good. There's no reason we don't have to take ourselves deadly serious every minute of every day. And it's been entertaining. And I hope you've been entertained, because I certainly have stood on the stage and been entertained any number of times with the things I've heard. But here's the thing. We're not electing the entertainer-in-chief. We're not. We're electing the commander-in-chief in some really dark and dangerous times. The person who will represent our country to the rest of the world. The person who will make decisions that will affect our safety and our security, our economic future, our educational future. And so, showtime is over. It's game time. Especially for that guy. Almost. It's game time. It's game time. And the rest of the country's counting on you. Iowa and New Hampshire will take this race from 17 people when we started to, I bet you, 4 or 5 by February 10th, after New Hampshire and Iowa both vote. That means you all are going to decide who the other 48 states get to pick from. It's an enormous responsibility and opportunity. And I know you take it seriously. I know it's part of who Iowans are. So I'm not telling you something you don't already know, but this year with this many candidates, your responsibility is even larger. And we're going to be here in Des Moines on the 11 days from now, on the 28th of January for the next presidential debate. I don't know how many people will be on the stage. It could be 6, could be 7, could be 8, who knows. Whatever it is, I'll show up. They give me a podium and a microphone, I show up. Okay? But when it comes on TV that night, what I would respectfully ask you to do is when it first comes on, you see all of us standing up there, right? Standing next to each other when they introduce us and they're taking pictures. And it looks like the student council election, right? We're all up there kind of goofy, like, you know what to do, before we actually get going. I want you to look at the people standing on that stage. And I want you to ask yourself 3 questions. Who's the person who's been most tested? Who's the person who's most mature? And by their experience, who's the person who's most prepared to be president of the United States? I think if you ask yourself those 3 questions, tested, mature, and prepared to be president, that will lead you to what is the right decision for you and hopefully the right decision for our country. But it's time now. 2 weeks to go. And I know that most Iowans don't decide till the last 2 weeks, so here we go. It's your time now. It's decision time, it's game time for all of you to make that decision. I'm here because I'm asking for your vote. I'm not going to be subtle about it. Well, you must have shown up and must want me to vote for him. No, no, no. I want you to vote for me. I want you to go and caucus for me 2 weeks from Monday. I hope that you think over the course of my career and from what you've heard today that not only I can earn your vote, but I want a little more than that. I not only want your vote, I want your trust and your confidence. See, your vote will get me to the White House. That's a good thing. But without your trust and your confidence, I can't be an effective president. Because I'm going to make some decisions you're not going to agree with. I'm going to make some decisions that are hard that you're going to say, I wonder if that was the right thing. But if I have your trust and your confidence, I have a chance to be a successful president. And we need a successful presidency after the last 7 years. We need a president who we believe has our best interests at heart. We need a president who we believe is listening to us and hearing us, and then acting in a way that puts the nation's interest first, not his own political interest, but the nation's interest. I got elected governor of New Jersey in 2009 when no one thought a Republican could win. No Republican had been elected statewide in New Jersey for 12 years before I was elected governor. And as soon as I won, the Democrats said, well, it wasn't him, it was that our governor was really bad. And it had nothing to do with him, we'll beat him in 4 years. And 4 years later, after governing as a conservative Republican in one of the bluest states in this country, I got reelected with 61% of the vote, 51% of the Hispanic vote, 22% of the African American vote, and against a female opponent, which may be very instructive for later this fall. Against a female opponent, I won 57% of the female vote. There are no silver medals in this business, everybody. It's not like the Miss America pageant we hold in New Jersey, right? Where you have the first runner-up, and if Miss America can't serve for some reason, the first runner-up gets to serve. You lose this one, you go home. We can't afford to lose this election. We have had 8 tough years. We cannot afford another 4. We will not recognize what our country looks like if Hillary Rodham Clinton becomes the next president of the United States. And so this is now the time to not only nominate the person you think could be the best president, but the one who you want to see standing on that stage next September across from Hillary Clinton, the one you think can prosecute the case best against her, the one you think is tough enough, tested enough to stand up across from her, because you know the Clintons are going to throw everything they can at that person, because this is their last chance to get back in public housing. Right? So they want it. They want it bad. So you need to make sure you have someone who knows how to win, and win in a place that is not easy to win. And I won in a place with 750,000 more Democrats than Republicans. Because I won Republicans, I won independents, and I won some right-thinking Democrats who decided this guy's good. We're going to give him a chance, even though he's in the other party. That's what we need to put on the stage next September against Hillary Clinton. So I can't thank you enough for coming. I want us, no matter what team you root for, to be thinking of our Denver Bronco brother here. And I want you to understand, man, look at that clock. 3:28. So if you miss kickoff, not my fault, okay?
My doctor will be happy you gave me a stress test.
Excellent, good. Thank you all for coming today. I appreciate it very much.
He's having fun with it.
Governor Christie, then may I please have a picture with you?
Sure, yes, sir. Where's the camera?
Right here.
Oh, here we go.
Let's see.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for answering my
You're
question.
very welcome. Good luck today.
Yep.
Sir.
What's your name?
You got it. How are you?
Excellent.
Thanks. Can you keep Dan give me the structure?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Can I you? About that. Ooh, pretty soft,
14 on Tuesday. You want me to put 13 or 14? Okay.
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 Ma'am, how are you? Thank you for coming. Yeah, thank you for coming. All right.
else do you need?
That's all I
Number?
need.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for your consideration. Appreciate it.
Get her picture?
You bet you can.
Nice
How are
to
you?
meet you.
Very nice to meet you too.
No, that's okay. The picture looks good.
Why don't you stand over here?
Thank you. Thank you.
You betcha.
I bet you never autographed it.
I never remember Coach Overton. So it's fun for everyone.
Now you'll always remember me.
That's exactly right. Thank you, sir.
Introduce Mom.
Appreciate it very much.
I know.
Nice to meet you.